All right. Good evening, morning, or afternoon, everybody. It is a bunch of us here to talk about the most recent 2087 draft. This draft recap will go like most of that happened. We're going to talk about each of the first round picks, likes, dislikes, and then we will take kind of our favorites from the second and third, as most of the picks past that, i.e., fourth and beyond, were very lotto-y ticket kind of picks this year. Sorry, Jermaine, that includes your guy, no matter how much you actually like him. So, guys, let's start off with pick number one, and that pick went to Oakland, and they took the young third baseman whose name was Grant Bagnold. What do we think about Grant?
Well, between him and the other, I don't know what the other third baseman's name was. It was basically a carbon copy of him and Riddell. It was pretty much a given for any one of them to be number one overall. He looks decent. He has great defense at third base. Contact will probably come up enough to be good, even though he's a righty. But that eye, I don't know. I'm an eye guy, so that eye, he's gonna be like Shaw. He's gonna hit a ton of home runs, but he's gonna strike out 150 times a year, I think.
Yeah, personally, I actually hate the pick.
I don't disagree.
What?
Well, I'm just going to say the reason I don't like it is the same reason that you said. So when I look closer, his eye is absolutely garbage at 75 overall.
Yeah.
He can play defense. But if you look deeper at his power is actually not as good against righties. It's an 83 against lefties, so he's going to smash lefties.
Yeah, I agree. You're right.
I mean,
power guy, aka mogul build.
Right. Yeah, he's the typical mogul build, except that you're right. The eye is going to be just terrible. Like, I think his contact is going to get better than people think. I think his contact's going to be pretty darn solid, and he's going to have some power. But without that eye, I mean, like, when I was doing my write-up, I compared somebody to the guy that I have, Tally. And Tally's a guy that he hits like 200, but might hit 30 home runs. But he has a good eye. And I don't think Bagnold will have that eye that's going to kind of make him that elite third baseman that Oakland thought he would be. I think there's a couple of holes there. I think the eye is a big one. I think if he will be able to hit righties is going to be another big one. If he becomes a super platoon guy, then you're really upset with that pick up top. I don't think he's going to be that bad. He might be kind of like Ben Karn, most recently of Cleveland. But we'll see. Time will tell on that one.
Yeah, I don't see him being a platoon guy. I think he'll be able. If he can get the contact versus righties up to 80, he'll be okay. But he's going to strike out a lot.
Right. No, I don't think anybody's going to platoon him either, but I'm just saying that if he ends up hitting that poorly against righties, you almost hate, even with a great defense, to have him in that lineup.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll do it because it's worth it in the end, but, it makes it a little bit harder of a pill to swallow.
Yeah, he's probably a 5 guy. I don't know if he'll hit 4. I don't know if he'll make it to cleanup.
I just think, when you have the first overall pick, you don't want to say, hey, if everything goes amazing, he's going to be good.
I agree with you. Even though I'm guilty of that.
Yeah, we're all guilty of that to some extent. It's unfortunate, though, that some of these draft classes that come out have not had that obvious number one draft pick that everybody's been looking for.
Yeah, they've been lacking. Even this year, they were lacking. They were much better than last year. Way better than last year, but still not like the ones of the past.
All right, well, let's move on to the second pick in the draft. This is kind of the first surprise of the draft, I would say, with Greg Mayore Banks going number 2 to the Braves. What do we think about Mr. Greg?
Well, there goes my power. Am I there?
Yeah, you're here.
Okay. All right. Luckily, I don't need my internet for this. Oh, now everything's on again.
You're going to go into that hell that I was just in 10 minutes ago where it flickers on and off a couple times.
Yeah. But, yeah, I actually, I mean, I was praying that this dude made it to the second round, but I mean, him or Young were going to be. I was going to shoot for him like my first pick in the second, or worst case scenario, if they drop down low enough, trade ahead of you so you didn't get him.
Yes,
but I was really
what your
surprised when
plan
he goes
was. Listen, I was too. I was shocked that he went that high. Not because he's not a good build. He's a very good build. We saw that build last year in Nomar Fernandez. We saw it a couple of years ago in Mate, the guy that is on the Giants. So he's a very similar build. He's going to steal a lot of bases. Should get on base, but we'll see. I know there was some people complaining. Well, not complaining, but arguing. How good he may end up being. And some were a little bit concerned because his speeds are already almost identical, which would mean peak window. They're not, and it doesn't mean just because they're that close that they will actually hit that. But there was a concern by a few individuals that I had heard around the chats about this pick, about how much time he'll actually have to progress, and if he can kind of hit that that limit you want to see out of somebody up here. He doesn't have the guaranteed, I'm definitely going to hit this. So it's going to be very curious to see how he turns out. I mean, he might well very turn out kind of like a Graham Belair's, a guy that's not going to be, the prettiest one at the party, but somebody you can plug in and will play pretty well for you. So, Hokey, what do you think?
Yeah, I honestly was one of those people that I wasn't the biggest fan of the pick. It kind of goes to the same thing. Second overall, he's already high overall. His peak's not that much different, so maybe he peaks at 22, 23. If he gets one really good jump and his contact goes to like 87 or 88 later this season, then yeah, he's going to be really good. If it goes to like an 84, then there's not that much space to go. He's going to be like probably peaking somewhere around 89, 90 contact. You look at the league, like 2 years ago, I had 4 outfielders with 93 contact and relatively good speed. It doesn't really do you anything. It's good to have that one guy, but you probably could get that later in the draft, especially when there's a lot better players available. And let's be honest, Stang is very much like me. He's going to tank for like another good couple of years, so he's going to get another chance at a center fielder with, hopefully 95 contact, 95 speed, 85 eye.
Yeah, I mean he's definitely a right fielder. I wouldn't put that in center, but I mean right now you could plug him right into your lineup with the vitals he has in offense. But like you said, if he gets a good jump, he's going to be fucking beautiful. If he doesn't, you're screwed.
Yeah, he needs the jump.
Yeah,
without it, he'll have some ability, but not the ability that you want out of the second pick of the draft. All right, now let's talk about these. Well, I would hate to classify the third pick of the draft the steal of the draft, but it definitely is a steal if you kind of catch my drift. So let's talk about Tony Riddell.
Well, I'll just start this. Hey, this is probably the first time you're ever going to hear me say this, but yeah, Peter definitely had the best pick in the draft. Easily the best pitcher. Hey, kind of reminds me of Lance Walder or whatever my pitcher is. Right? He's 19, amazing control. He's got a decent fastball, very good curve. Still has a chance to jump, if I'm not mistaken. There's really no downside to that. How often do you get he's probably going to hit about 94, 95 control, hopefully somewhere around 90 movement. Most decent pitchers are that.
Oh yeah, hands down the best arm in the draft, no doubt. I don't like he's one pitch. Well, I guess he's 2 pitches right now, but his overall I think will jump above his fastball. But still, hands down was the best one in the draft.
Yeah, I agree. I think he was the best player in the draft. I think it was a sly move for Peter to be able to get up there and take him.
Nice way to say that.
It's early in the pod. People will actually listen this far, so I can't say what I really want to say. And it would maybe be unfair to other people to do so. So I'll let it go. But good lord, he definitely is the best pitcher in the draft. I think. It reminds me of the guy that I have, Zunja, however you want to say it. Yeah, that has the potential to have that 100 kind of control, that 90 plus power, or not power, but movement. And could be a very, very good pitcher. So leave it to Peter to be able to hop up there like that, and nab the Ninja. Yeah, fuck that. All right. Jamie's trying to howl. It's just not working. So yeah, it is what it is. He definitely is. Out of the 3 or 4 pitchers that I loved in this draft, I think I liked him the most. And so he went in the right spot. I think especially for Peter to be able to get up there, nab it. Can't go wrong with that. That's definitely not it, Percy. All right. Nope. All right. Jeff Rosser. Andy's pick, 4th overall, a 16-year-old first baseman. Looks like the kind of prototypical power eye combo with not a lot of defense. Andy was over the moon with this pick. Really, really liked it. Was very happy to get this guy. At the same time, I did see at some point in the chat that he was disappointed that he jumped before the chat. I think Andy was hoping to nab this guy a little bit lower in the draft and not have to take him as high. Personally, for some reason, I'm not as high on him as Andy is, and maybe some others. I don't know what it is. I don't think the contact is going to get as high as folks think it is. I don't think the power is either, and I don't think the eye is. I just think that in the end, you're going to have a very solid average to above average first baseman. And I could be very wrong on this, but I don't see him as this kind of titan of first baseman, like this guy that everybody's going to be like, oh shit, how did I not draft up to get him? Okay.
To me, he reminds me of a guy I picked up, I think 2 years ago, McDonough or whatever you pronounce
Yes, I
it.
remember him.
Yeah, kind of the same build, same style defense. And what I'm finding, hopefully Jeff doesn't go into the same thing, but what I'm finding is he's going to be a great platoon guy. Can't hit lefties worth shit, but he's going to crush righties. Both contact and his powers are, his power hasn't come around completely, but he looks the same way, at least contact wise, where he's going to be all righties, no lefties. Hopefully that 49 jumps up, but he looks like the same build that I got out of him, which isn't bad because most people throw righties up against you, so you can deal with them not being able to hit lefties. That's not a big deal, but I think he'll be great against righties, I think.
Yeah, you might be right. Again, I just fear this is one of those guys that it looks like he should be really good and ends up not being as good as everybody thinks he might be. I could be very wrong. Again, I've been wrong in the past. Dave will quickly tell you about his favorite left fielder that I crapped on after the draft, and it has turned out quite well since then. So,
yeah, I mean, honestly, it's not the build I would ever pick. But let's be honest, it's Andy picking that type of build. And in the past, I mean, there was Jose Vargas, if I'm not mistaken, that had no contact. Turned out to be a pretty good third baseman. Just kind of seems to be that thing. It never works out for me, but Andy always has this way of making someone with no contact, pure power, turn out well. So
I can't complain about the build. I took at least 2 first basemen with that exact build last year. So, it is what it is. But yeah, for some reason, I'm not a huge fan of his. But we'll see. Again, I'm not. There's plenty of guys I'm not a fan of at draft day. Then the teams get them in the winter ball and they get one of those magical 3-point jumps that I've never ever seen myself, and all of a sudden they become really good players. So every time I talk about guys at draft day, this is not counting on winter ball or any of those other magical things that can happen to players. So. All right. The next pick, Colorado, is a pick I did like quite a bit. In Samuel
And there goes
Cubano,
Mizzy again.
who honestly, between the two bats.
You keep
between
like
him
fading in and out.
Huh? Really?
Not cutting. You like fade out and fade back in.
That's weird. Well, that's weird. It's the same thing every now and again I keep hearing when Hokey talks. Like he'll be talking, all of a sudden they kind of like out, and then sometimes comes back in. But I don't know. It might be something with the connection. It might be something that hopefully Jermaine can fix in post. But Cubano, I liked a lot better as a bat, especially over Rossier.
I mean, I like him. He's going to be a great bat. He's probably going to. I mean, he's a DH guy. I'd hope you wouldn't put this guy in the field because he's going to give you 15 to 20 errors a year, but easy. But I mean, the power's there. The contact versus righties there. He definitely. I don't know what his age. I can't remember what his age is compared to. That's right. Jeff's like 16. So, but he definitely has a better contact versus lefties, but much better power. Much better power. And the eyes above the overall at that point. It's not going to drop below, so that's all you need there.
Yeah, Cubano is 19. And again, I think he projects to have much more power and a better eye, a similar eye, and some decent contact. I look at him and I see maybe one of the best bats in the draft. So the whole KC pick was lost. Okay, none of us liked it a lot, Peter. That's kind of what it came out of that. So, Hokey, what do you think on Cubano?
In all honesty, I think it's kind of the same thing. It's not really a build that I would have. It does limit. He can't play anything but DH. Like there's nothing. He's basically like Henry Keon, right? That I traded to the Dodgers. It's one of those things. He's stuck in one position. Right now, he's definitely ahead of Rosser. I think Rosser in 3 years is better than Cubano, hands down. That's just my opinion that way, but it was probably the best hitter in the draft overall. Except for one other person, potentially, if they got a good jump.
Oh, can't wait to hear your favorite pick of the draft that wasn't in the top 5 or 10 or whatever it was. So, all right. Now, my second favorite pitcher in the draft, I do believe, comes up next, and Mark LeBlanc, an 18-year-old right-handed pitcher with, let's look at a good fastball, good circle change, decent curve, and it's kind of got that build that you almost start to see in aces, where it starts with the high power, good control, and the movement that lags a little bit, but then quickly catches up and surpasses some of those other things. So, what do people think about LeBlanc?
I mean, I hope OWM likes him. He's the one that drafted him.
I'm pretty sure
I like
he likes him.
I'm just sitting back because I picked him, so I don't want to say anything about him.
I mean, I'll be honest. He was easily my number 2 overall person. We talked about it before the draft even happened. Honestly, once I saw that Rudell went 3rd and LeBlanc went 6th, I knew I was not getting anyone I wanted to draft, and that's when I instantly decided to trade my picks for some form of upgrade. There's easily those are the 2 best. After that, you're kind of trying to hit specific pitchers that might have a chance to be good, but nothing really sticks out. And he has all the makings of ace material. He's got the good fastball. He's a right-handed pitcher. He's got the high power. Control is 10 points above overall. Obviously, that will diminish over time. And then movement's the only thing you have to worry about. If he hits like 85 movement, then maybe he doesn't become an ace. If he hits anywhere close to the 90 or 92 range, he is easily leading your team as the ace for like the next 7-10 years.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think it was a very good pick. I think that people might have overlooked him a little bit, and Dan was able to take that to the bank. So I think it's good to see him take a good pitcher in the top 10 for once.
Yeah, it is pretty nice to have that feeling like I took a good pitcher. let's just hope, like all my other pitchers, he doesn't get like that one jump before peak and then just plummet.
Yeah, I think he's going to end up a lot better than Logston, who is a guy that I even looked back at that the other day. I'm like, how did he turn out so bad? And then I went back and looked at it on my draft day. I'm like, oh, I hated him. Oh, I did not like him at all. Why did Dan take him? And then now that we see where he is, I'm just like, oof, well, that's unfortunate. But all right, Washington's next pick, huh?
I should have taken the first baseman in that draft. I forget who I was looking.
I would have to go back and look, and I'm not going to do it now. Dave Sheeran. So currently listed as third base. There was a lot of scuttlebutt about him being a shortstop. So we'll have to kind of watch and see how that one plays out. What do we think about the power eye guy, right-handed David Sheeran?
Wow. His fielding's actually really good at shortstop, but his range sucks. Shortstop wise. If you put him at shortstop, he's a pretty good shortstop build offensive wise because he has power and an eye. He has the contact of a shortstop, which I'm not high on. 11 points below overall. That's not a good start, especially with a righty. He's good, but I wasn't. I mean, as good as these third basemen are, because we haven't seen good third basemen in a while. I wasn't really high on any of them, just because of their piss poor contact on every one of them. But this guy has an eye, so that's going to make up a lot for his contact, at least with on base percentage and the fact that he's not going to strike out every other pitch or every other at bat. But his power looks really good. So he's going to be a good power third baseman. I wouldn't move him to shortstop, but that's just me personally. I don't think he has the range for it.
Yeah, I'd be concerned myself a little bit about the range at short. But at the same time, I mean, if you look at his kind of position chart, I mean, he has more range. It shows more range at short than it does at third base. So it's kind of interesting to see on that. I don't know. Honestly, I was not a huge fan of his for whatever reason. Nothing against him. I think he's a good pick. But there was just something I didn't really click with me about him. And I don't know if it was just the lack of arm or the lack of range or a little bit of both. But if he does well enough at shortstop, I think it's worth the risk putting him there. Because, you get a shortstop that's going to hit a ton of home runs and get on base with a good eye. You take that over what's mostly out there right now. So,
yeah, I mean, I definitely think he should stay at third base. There's a couple key fielding vitals I'm not a big fan of at short. I don't think, I agree that, yeah, you probably want something like a good masher at shortstop, but I think it might be a little too detrimental to the defense. It's definitely the best third baseman in the draft. That's a hands down. I think, his righties versus lefty vitals is not the greatest, but that's a build with the power and eye where if he does hit the 90 overall, you're probably looking something like 77, 93 power, like 93, 95 eye. Those are all great DH levels at worst.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if he hits all his jumps right now, you're looking at 75 contact, 93 power, 90 eye. Yeah, again, that's pretty solid. And for a shortstop, it looks pretty good. But again, that'll really be up to Peter on which way he decides to go about this. So, all right, moving on to Carey, Justin Carey, who goes number 8 overall to the Giants. Justin Carey, what are our thoughts on him?
To me, just another DH. I mean, he's going to be good. I think. I think he'll come around contact. I mean, obviously his contact's good. I'm just not a huge fan of righties, just the way the foul is. But I think he's going to be a great bat. But defensively, another guy wouldn't put in the field. He's just another DH.
Yeah, I can see that. I think his bat's gonna be quite good. I think he's gonna have a sneaky amount of power. Not great power, but like he's gonna hit more home runs than you would think with what he's got. He's gonna have a great eye, good contact, probably great contact. He might be able to fit in left field or right field in a pinch. I'm not saying that it's ideal, but when you're taking a guy this high, you kind of want to see him on the field, and not just kind of in the DH spot. So I don't know. Hokey, what do you think?
Yeah, I kind of agree with both of you. I think if I was looking more for like a DH power person, there's a right fielder that was taken a little bit later. That probably would have been a better fit at 8. Just kind of depends, right? Like if you want to have a 16-year-old that has a lot of potential to grow, then Carey is a great pick that way, right? And the thing with him is the ceiling could be potentially unlimited.
Right. You have the age to play with there, so you definitely like your chances.
Yeah. Like even if you're terrible at getting winter ball and you fail like 5 years, you're probably still going to be able to try to send him a 6th year. Like
Or you don't get 5 years.
Well, if he doesn't jump to 80, you can keep sending him if he doesn't get the jump.
No, I'm saying I didn't have winter ball for 5 years.
Oh, yeah, well, that's because you tanked.
Yeah, I did. I kind of tanked there.
Yeah, win 50 games, and you no longer have that problem. It's a simple concept. All right,
it hurts, dude. Believe me, it hurts.
Well, make sure you tell everybody that, since people tend to like that. All right, the first pick that actually generally surprised me after 2 was the next one, Nat Brackenridge, going number 9 to Houston. I know. Dan and I had a talk about him right after he was drafted, because I asked Dan, what the hell did I miss on this guy to have him go 9 overall? I had him on my list of guys to potentially take at 20. I had no idea or no inkling even that he would go as high as 9. But you look at him, he's 17, righty. Good control power. He's got kind of that almost that ace build you want to see with the power control and then moving behind. I don't think he's quite ace level. I think he's a solid 2-3 guy, but overall, I like the pitcher. Again, I was looking at him at 9 or at 20. I apologize. I was a bit surprised to see him go at 9. So, especially ahead of the next guy that we're going to talk about. But what does everybody else think about Mr. Brackenridge?
Good, okay.
Yeah, I kind of agree. Like he's definitely a type of pitcher that I would look at later in the rounds. But there's a couple things that when I look at it, I'm not the biggest fan of. Having the slider way above the fastball. I've realized recently if you're trying to build an ace type, you kind of want the fastball to be much higher. Then you have the minor league stats, which people have different opinions on whether they matter or don't. But there are things such as 11 home runs in 63, or the fact that his ERA was below 4 only once in those 4 years. To me, that's not necessarily something I would probably want to take in the top 10. I think there's other players that are big risk, high reward players that might be a better option.
Yeah, I agree. I had him. I was looking at him also as a second round guy. I didn't see him going 9. Don't get me wrong. He played in my mind at 11 because 11 there was no clear cut anybody to take at 11. But I did like him for the same reasons. He has that control power right off the bat. His control's already basically at 60. But I'm with you, Hokey. If it's not fastball number 1, it has to be, for me at least, it has to be a 2-seam fastball to be the number 1 pitch, because everything else they sort of start like almost bullpen typing. pitchers, and I didn't like his minor league stats. But at the same time, if I was late first round or like my first pick in the second round, I would have jumped all over him, but not at 9. There's just too much risk involved for me to grab him at 9.
Yeah. Yep,
Yeah.
I agree. If that fastball was like a 68 right now, all over it at 9. But
Yeah.
being where it is compared to the other pitchers, you're right. It's a bit of a concern. All right. Next, let's move on to the Cubs and one of the bigger surprising drops in the first round. Mike Jenkins drops all the way to 10, where he gets picked up by Cubs in the trade down. What do we think caused the Jenkins meltdown?
He's lefty and he's 22. That's the only thing I can think of. Other than that, everything looks good.
Lefty and 22 out of the gate. That is our pick. All right. I don't disagree with that. He is a lefty and he is 22. There's nothing I can fix about that.
Other than that, it looks gorgeous as a vital wise. I mean, I think that his overalls jumped over his control, so that's a little bit of a worry. But,
yeah.
I mean, he's going to hit mid 80s control, I would assume. So I wouldn't call him a number 1 guy, but he's definitely seeming to be a good 2 or 3 guy, especially with that fastball. Oh.
All right, he's got the fastball way above everything else. Got a good slider and a changeup. And the one issue that I would have with him, it's not a small thing either, is the home runs seem to be an issue. 85, 86, he gave up 18, and he gave up 10.
Oh, yeah. Didn't see that
this year. Like that could be an issue. Those even before that, in the high school numbers, you're looking at almost double digits each year. Like that's a lot of home runs. Some of the other stats look really good. I mean, his OBA looks good for the most part. His ERA, for those who look at that, good. His strikeout to walk is almost 3-1. That's great. Like there's a lot of good signs. The home runs look to be an issue, and for a lefty, that's one of the things you really don't want to see. But at the same time, this is a guy that dropped very, very minorly during his birthday. He went from a 77.93 to a 77.91 on his birthday. He only dropped 2 points. So he's got plenty of time to kind of click around and become that ace or that 2-3. And you're right. I think he leans maybe a little bit more toward 2 at this point. But still, to have him go all the way down to 10 was a bit of a shock. I think that Chicago, for as much crap as they're getting for their stupid trade with Washington, they still ended up getting one of the better pitchers of the draft by doing it. So
I was going to grab him at 11 if he didn't take him at 10.
Right. I know you and I discussed that as well, kind of during the draft, that would have been a nice kind of home run swing for you to get 2 good pitchers right at the top of the draft, kind of almost unexpectedly too.
Yeah, Mass jumped in and DM'd me. He's like, if you don't take Jenkins at 11, he's like, you just pack it up and go home.
Yeah, well, he went at 10, so you didn't have to. So, Hokey, what do you think? I know you and Maddie Maddie thinks Jenkins is trash, so are you going the other way?
Oh, well, no. I'm not going to go the other way. I mean, kind of the same thing. He's 22. He's a lefty. His home runs is absolutely garbage. He has a 35% ground ball, so there's even a higher chance. The saving grace is he's got a good fastball. So, maybe he gets good enough jumps out of it. My problem as well is he is 22. And he only dropped from a 93 to 91, but there have been plenty of times where we've seen in the past that when someone gets drafted and they have a small jump, say he jumps to 80 and he becomes 80/92 or something like that. In the off season, sometimes he becomes an 80/87 because he's going to peak at 24, right? There are a lot of red flags there that is one of those reasons where I may not pick him just for that reason. However, that's one thing. The Cubs need some pitching. And is there really a lot of choices in pitching afterwards that really stand out? There's a lot of people
No.
that, you're going to take a chance on. So you're just taking a chance on someone that's already got good vitals.
Right. No, I agree 100%. I think, and again, for someone who really needed pitching, staying at 3 and taking Rydell would have been a much better choice. That's just a move that will continue to baffle and puzzle me. But what do I know? All right, another LA pick, Gil Cohen, one of the unknown Cohen brothers, goes to Los Angeles. So this is a guy with a big arm, some solid range, and a little bit of speed. Though the speed doesn't seem to quite translate the way that you would want it to. What does everybody think about Gil Cohen?
Well, be honest with you, I had like 5 guys I was looking at this time whenever I had him, and I actually had I think who ended up taking him. I think Maddie ended up taking him. I actually had Bryant typed in and ended up deleting it and putting Cohen in. I liked his switch. I think his contact can come up and be pretty decent, and still have, he's probably going to hit 10, 15 home runs. Speed obviously looks nice, but yeah, definitely his decision making sucks balls. So he's probably going to get thrown out a lot. But he'll, I'm just looking for a guy who gets on base that I can move him around. I'd love to have a guy that has 93 decision making, 90 aggressiveness, but this still gets you a guy that'll get on the base and move around, and he'll have decent eye. Plus, he has a fucking cannon as an arm, so I'm going to throw him in right field.
See,
yeah,
that's where I would disagree. Like, I know that he has a 96 arm in the game, but then when you look a little bit closer, you see that his strength is a 77 and his accuracy is a 70. Like, what part of that screams 96 arm?
I never could figure that out about those two vitals in this game, ever. I'll be honest with you. I've seen it so many times where it has an arm like that. You look down and his strength and accuracy are terrible. So I don't know. I stopped paying attention to those vitals a long time ago. I don't know if they mean anything. They may mean something. I don't know, but I've just quit paying attention to them because they never seem to be the same even in the same range.
Yeah. And I could be entirely wrong in terms
I'm not
of
saying you're not.
I do like him though. He definitely does seem like he's going to be a good player. As you said, his the fact that he's a switch hitter is fantastic because it doesn't matter who's throwing the ball, you're going to have him in the lineup. His contact is close enough to his overall that even if it's a little bit under, it's not that devastating. His power is kind of in that same area. So even if he hits 90 peak and he does 80, 87 or 88 contact, that's still a very good center fielder with good speed, and his eye will be good as well. There's no downside that way. And if you do, I guess I keep talking about winter ball, but if you get lucky and you finally get to do winter ball, then if he does jump into that 93 range, you're getting 2 major areas that are going to be 90 overalls for a center fielder.
Yeah, I was not a big fan of Cohen. He wasn't on my board. I like the guy that was picked 2 picks later. Well, and I think it shows. I like the guy picked 2 picks later much more. The guy picked 3 picks later even more than that. So I think there were other outfielders that could have been better options. But again, when you have an 18-year-old switch hitter, it's a good die to take a roll on. So next, let's move on to potentially the best catcher of the draft. Well, I'll just say the best catcher of the draft. I don't care. Jack Womack going to the Fighting Freds of the Boston Persuasion. What do we think about Jack?
I'm typing. Go for it.
Oh, yes, you're answering Maddie. You're answering Marty. Yeah. I like him. I like him. I way back when I started draft scouting, I said, "Holy shit, that's the guy I'm taking at 20." And then I looked and saw there was no other catchers and said, "Holy shit, he's not going to fall to 20. That's too bad." I like him. I like him quite a bit. We haven't had a good catcher's draft in a while. This year tended to be a bit better than most. I mean, he's a guy that's going to have 90-plus arm. He's going to get a massive upper 90s handling score, two things that I personally like in pitchers, and he should be able to hit the ball pretty well. He'll have good contact, solid power, and a solid eye. Is he going to be a Hall of Famer? Is he going to be an All-Star? No, maybe not, but he's going to be a damn good catcher for a number of years. And I think that's something that a lot of teams are really looking for. So, I mean, kudos to Fred. I think it's a fantastic pick.
Yeah, I was obviously the best catcher in the draft. Probably the best catcher it's been in a draft in the last 5 seasons. 4 or 5 seasons, I don't know, just exaggerating there, but he's probably the best catcher we've seen in a draft in a while, at least vitals wise. I do think he'll be pretty decent, solid catcher, decent arm. The only thing that got me, and this may be something totally off, but the reason I didn't pick him at 11 as a catcher, and like Hookie was saying earlier, some people listen to them, look at the minors, some people don't. I tend to. And when I looked at his, throwing guys out, 20, 21, 28, 13, one good season, that's kind of what held me off for him. I think he'll be a decent average catcher. I think he'll be, a good offensive catcher. I think he'll, be a catcher that keeps you in games, but I don't think he's going to be the 36 to 40% guy that you see at the top of the RTO every sim. That's why I backed off of him.
You know what, Dan? I did not see that. You're right. His throwing out runners is 82. His preventing steals is 76. That is far from ideal and what you really want to see in the catcher. I did not notice that till now. Well, I'm glad he didn't fall and I didn't take him. That's fantastic.
Yeah, I think he's going to be a decent catcher in terms of that. There was only really 3 catchers in this draft that were even draftable at any point, in my opinion, because if I'm taking a catcher like OWM said, I like the arm. Handling is also pretty good. The fact that he's 91 handling means he can at least control your pitchers. Whether or not that really does exist and Mogul is smart enough to do anything, I don't know. But I have personally always found my pitchers do better with high handling. So until I stop believing, I'll go with that.
Yeah, no, I think the same thing. I've debated with people quite a few times about this. I do notice that my pitchers with him handling pitchers, I've noticed my pitchers ERAs different with higher guys like that. I think he'll help out in that way, but I don't think he'll be the defensive catcher that I don't think most people even look at that. I think they all look at the arm and throwing guys out stealing, and I don't think he'll be the guy that's going to light the house on fire for that. But he may be the guy that handles your entire rotation better than anyone in the foul.
Yeah, and you know what? Just kind of looking closer at his vitals, throwing out runners is an 82 and preventing steals is 76. So, yes. I mean, I have never really looked at that per se close enough, but let's just assume that defense doesn't improve. And if you look at, Buckman that you traded with a 95 arm had 93 and 95 in those 2 categories.
Yeah.
So that's 20 points difference.
Those are definitely. Those are definitely categories that I look at when I'm trying to determine how that arm is actually going to play. Because my catcher is very similar: 95 arm, 93 runners, 95 steals. So I mean that's something I look at. I prefer handling in my catchers, but everybody's a little bit different. There's some of those guys out there that like those soft tossing catchers, and I think they're fantastic. I personally don't, but it kind of comes down to each their own. So.
Mm-hmm.
All right, 13th, Dave decides to see if he can't add another Japanese outfielder, and he takes Okura Takahama with the 13th pick, a 19-year-old switch-hitting right fielder The fielding is, as Dan will probably say, less than ideal.
I
He's
hate
got
the outfielders in this foul.
less than ideal. But the bat looks good. The bat looks like it'll be a pretty solid bat. He's kind of got that contact with a little bit of power and an okay eye build. A guy that you love to just plug in that 2-hole and just kind of let him go. But what does everybody else think about Takahama?
I didn't even have him on my board because of literally he's a DH. If I want a DH, I'll buy one in free agency. And that's what drives me nuts about some of the outfielders in these drafts is they're just all fucking DHs. And but I mean, as far as DHs go, he looks good. I don't think he's going to have the power that you would hope in your DH role. He is a good speed guy. And I'm not opposed to putting a contact or a speed guy in a DH. I don't have to have a power, power bat in DH. If you're going to score runs for me, I'll throw you in a DH if you're hitting good. And he seems to be that type of guy. Like he's going to be a guy that's going to get on base for you. He's going to be a guy that's going to be able to run once he's on base. And he'll give you 10, 12, 15 home runs a year probably. Maybe a little higher than that, depending. He's 19. But yeah, I mean, he's good, but he's just another fucking mogul DH in the outfield.
Yeah, he's pretty much the same as any corner outfielder that seems to be. He's probably going to be a left fielder. In all honesty, kind of my same opinion as Carey. Yeah, he's probably got a bat that should be decent. He probably won't perform well just based on history, but there's still a better right fielder that got taken 11 picks later. And, if you're going to take one at 13, you might as well take the best available right fielder.
Yes, and we'll get to that right fielder in 11 picks. I agree. He was quite a good option. But as Maddie so pointedly said, he's Asian, so he sucks. Next. So we will move on that note to the next pick, which is Eric Young. Eric Young. And I think we should all vote on this one just to ignore the Eric Young pick and move on with our conversation and skip right to 15. Do the Yays win on that one?
I don't know. You got to talk about this guy. You can't just pass him. I hate Andy for taking him.
I really do want to pass on him. I think it would be hilarious and well worth our time. But fine. I will say one thing. When you look at him and you look at Tony Woolen, you're looking at basically the same build. And that scares me and excites me. Excites me because I was hoping he would be on my team, and scares me because he's fucking not. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to say about him. He scares me. He looks like one of those fantastic defensive first and yet lead off potential guys, and he's 17. Like, yeah. Fuck all the picks that Andy picked up so that he could make this magic move that nobody knew. Oh, actually, let's be fair. I blame LA because when I'd asked earlier in the week if they were trading that pick, they were very wholeheartedly not. And then I didn't stay up late enough last night to make a run at it myself. So, oh well.
You know what? The only thing that I could say is maybe slightly scary on the other side is, because obviously it's a great pick, is the fact that his eye is a little low.
Yeah.
And that's the only thing. At the end of the day, he's going to get great vitals all around. Where his eye ends up just really depends whether he becomes amazing or not. There have been a lot of players that have a average eye with the 90 contact and 90 speed and are absolutely fantastic. Then there's other ones that don't quite become fantastic.
You're right. The eye does seem like it's going to be. It might need to be a stretch to hit that 80 mark. It might just be just south like that 78, 79 range. But if he can get to 80 or he can get above 80, then yeah, that's that's where we all sit there and go, well, shit.
I
So,
mean, because Matty loves this. When he was 14, he only hit 205, and that might be a thing.
you say that, I'm gonna watch Matty furiously type something contrary to that.
It's okay. I actually can't draft hitters, as we all know, and him and I argue about pitchers all the time. It's great.
I mean, this is the Andy build right here. I mean, this is hands down the Andy build. This is the guy when I was learning how to draft. Andy taught me how to draft. The only thing that I'm with Hokey. His eye scares me a little bit. But other than that, this is the outfielder you want on a championship team. I don't know. I mean, hopefully he gets that jump, the mogul jump that we all love. But even if he doesn't, if he peaks at 84, he's still going to be a great center fielder. The only thing that scares me about him, I mean, other than the eye, but that's neither here nor there, but what scares me is his health. And I only say that is because a 73 health can be one of two things. Means absolutely fucking nothing in mogul, and he goes through like he had 100 health, or every other week he's getting hurt. Like 70, that 68 to 73 range, mogul either doesn't even pay attention to it, or they just fucking crush you. And that's the only thing that scares me about this guy. Other than that, I mean, Andy will have him in center field until he drops below 80.
Yep, absolutely agree. All right, so let's talk about Doug Harter. Doug Harter, or Harter.
Yeah, Harter.
21. Yeah, I'm trying not to say harder. That's what I want to do. 21-year-old first baseman, right-handed, power eye build, and go.
Hate the contact. Just everything else looks good.
Yeah.
He scares me if he'll hit the Mendoza line. Or if he does, he's going to be a 220 guy. I mean, when he's in there, he's going to hit you probably 25 to 30, if not more. Well, he's what? Well, now he's 21. So yeah, I'd say 25. He'll probably jump above 30 a couple seasons, but that I don't like that contact at all.
And I would agree. And I would agree in many ways. But like when I look at him, if you just flip and he was a lefty instead of a righty, he's pretty much Cubano, which you guys both loved. So like this is the area where like I only like specific first basemen, which never works out for me. I trade them away because I think that they're gonna fail, and then they just magically become Hopez. But like. For me, it's just his lefties is 86 power. He's gonna smash, and the fact like his contact's only 5 below his peak, which is the exact same as Cubano, but it's the fact that he is far better against lefties than righties. So if his stats even out, he's gonna be good. If his stats, if he peaks and it's really just the lefty section that is actually doing really well, he's gonna become more of a platoon. And that kind of goes back to where I slightly disagree with you guys with roster. I'm a little bit more forgiving on roster than you guys, but still a good pick here, especially because he gets basically a Resendez as a first base.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll see how it goes. I think the power and I are gonna be really nice. I do worry about the contact and where he might end up being a Scott Miller type bat. So, but Scott Miller had his bonuses, so we'll see. Troy Jacoby.
I love how you guys can remember all these players. I can't remember any players.
Well, just gonna leave it at well. Anyway, Troy Jacoby, center fielder, goes to, I believe, St. Louis. Yep. What do we think about Mr. Jacoby? I'll tell you right off the bat, he was not on my board. Not because I don't think he's going to be good. He's just not on my board. I think Matty took a better center fielder and a better outfielder a couple picks later, a guy who was on my board, but this guy did not make my board. I think he's gonna be a mundane bat. Like he's gonna have vitals that all kind of like start to creep up into that 80 range, like decent contact, decent power. He'll have some speed. He might get an eye, but I did not like the pick. I feel like people were looking around. I think GD was looking around, trying to find a guy with speed. Probably had Young on his list ahead of him, and when Young went, the next guy on his list, and I think that kind of screwed him. I don't really like the speed. I don't think it's going to translate too well. And I'm not a huge fan of the bat, especially a guy that is, 20 years old already. So if he was a couple years younger, might like it a little bit more. But as of right now, not a huge fan. Andy likes him a bit more. He thinks he's a poor man's Refford from Zona. Not sure if I see that, but again, I'm not and in as touch with the files sometimes is some of the other gentlemen that have been in the league a while. So what do you guys think of Jacoby?
I'm kind of the same with you. I don't know if that contact ever comes around enough to make him significant. The speed's there. The power is going to be, it's not going to be great. It's going to be decent. Same with the eye. What turned me off of him, because I thought I had him on my board and I didn't. And what turned him off for me is when I looked at it, he doesn't look vital wise. You look at him and you're like, okay, this guy's not going to be a horrible defender. And then you look down at his actual fielding vitals and all you see is 60s. And definitely not putting him in center field if that's what he has. And he would even worry me in left. Now, if I'm looking now, granted, I'm in the same boat that Andy is. If I have two good rangy arm fielding guys, then I can take a guy that I'm willing to put a guy in one of the corner spots that isn't great in defense. But this guy isn't even enough that I'm willing to put him in because his offense is going to so outweigh his defense, it's not even going to matter. I'm with you. I don't see him like he'd have to get the magical mogul jump to become very relevant. I mean, he's a good number 7 guy in your lineup, number 7, number 8 guy in your lineup, but he's not going to be a guy that's going to light the world on fire.
Yeah, and I mean, I would also say at the same time, he probably is going to be more of like a DH role. He's not really a great outfielder. His eye is going to be average. Contacts better against lefties once again. And his speed doesn't really mean anything when he doesn't have good decision making. He doesn't steal. He has no aggressiveness. And once again, there's still a better center fielder not far away that hits left.
All right, let's move on to my least favorite pick of the first round, Rafael Savelis. What I don't know what happened here. I'm believing this was a list that Decker sent in, and if it is, he must have had only 17 people on it, and this was his 17th person. I don't understand the pick. I might be wrong. I just don't understand it. Yes, he has a 30 upside. Yes, he's 20, but he will be 21 by season's end. He has that kind of build that we saw in a couple of pitchers last year, Vela and Arnando from the Braves, both of whom got nice winter ball jumps and became really good-looking pitchers. But I just don't see this guy. He's got no fastball. His best pitches are a circle change and a slider. And he gives up a bunch of hits, a bunch of home runs, and some seasons he's been walking more than he's striking out. I don't understand the pick. I think he has the chance to be quite terrible, but please feel free to disagree with me.
He's terrible.
That's what I was gonna say.
Or don't.
Funny thing about him is my last pick in the 4th round. I'm looking at my board. And I'm looking and I'm like, I'm looking at his name on my board because I had him that's where I had him staged somewhere in the 4th round. And I was like, is this guy gone yet? And Andy's like, yeah, he's gone. I did not realize he was gone in the 1st round. Honestly, he's like, I look at him as a good setup guy. I would probably put him in his setup, or maybe a short reliever. And maybe that's what he was going for. Maybe he's going to convert him to that. I don't know. I don't know what his plans are. But yeah, no, not with. I don't see the upside on him at 20. If he was 52, 82, and he was 17 or 18, I could see it. But at 20, no, he's right. I just look at him as
20, almost 21.
Yeah,
he turns 21 before the playoffs start. So again, Matty just said it in chat, and I completely agree. You're looking at a late 2nd, early 3rd round pick. Sure, that makes complete sense.
Yeah.
But again, Decker's a guy that he will continue to get. He gets these mid-teen picks, and reaches deep into the 2nd round for a guy with that pick. He's done it a couple years in a row now, so maybe it's just the new norm, or maybe he's just a genius and we don't understand it yet. So hopefully he proves us all wrong. And just I should not scratch new tattoos that hurt. And he'll show us what it's about here in a couple of years. Hopefully after he relieves some of those money issues he's about to have. Now let's go into the pick that Mass started pimping as soon as he got back on the chat, which was always great to see. Gabe Grassi. What are everybody's thoughts on Mr. Grassi?
I'll let you go first, Hokey. You're a good pitcher guy.
Yeah. You know what? I actually kind of like the pick. Once again, his fastball and circle change, he's got 2 pitches relatively good. Maybe not ace material by any standard. Really just kind of depends whether his control of movement equally go up. That's kind of the way I look at it, is he has the potential to be like a good 2 to 4 pitcher if things go well. It's just whether or not everything does go well.
Yeah, I agree with you. I actually was secretly hoping everybody missed him because he jumped up before the draft. So I was hoping everybody missed him and I could grab him in the 2nd. But he kind of reminds me of Doc Lasanti on in my rotation, where if he gets that good control jump, he's going to be a 2 to 4 guy. But if he doesn't, then he's going to be. I mean, if that movement comes up, but that power, I don't know. He's that risky guy. He could be really good, or he could be that guy you were just like, son of a bitch. He never really got to where you wanted him to get to.
Yeah, I think he'll have some okay power, okay movement. I'm really worried about control. He was another guy that I was looking at before he jumped as somebody to kind of keep an eye on. And then after he jumped, I'm like, oh, should I consider him more? And so I gave him another deep look, and I'm just like, no, there's guys that I like better than him, for right or for wrong, and I maybe for wrong. Just not a huge fan of him. He's 19, so he's got some time. He will turn 20 this offseason. Not that that's too big a deal because he's still only 20, but I don't know. The jump was nice. I think the drop will be more telling. I think we'll know a lot about him once the drop happens, kind of where he's going to more than likely kind of pan out. So
yeah. And I actually had 2 left-handed pitchers above him from all the pitchers that were left at this point. So both got taken a little bit later, but
yeah, I was gonna say it was 1 pick 2 picks later and 1 pick 7 picks later.
Close.
Close.
Okay, now let me ask you guys this because of the speed thing. So on hitters, you're looking at to see if the speed matches up. On pitchers, are you looking at power and speed?
Okay. No, you're still looking at speed.
So you're looking at speed and what?
Speed overall? And speed. So his speed right now is gonna be. It's in his vital. So his base running speed right now is 61. So if you were to go into his player card, So if you're going to go to Sorable Stats and you're going to go to Minnesota, which nobody ever wants to go to because, God, it's Minnesota, and you look at his player card, his speed over there is a 58.
Oh,
So his
okay.
speed over there is a 58 compared to the 61. So it's still 3. Unless
Right.
Matty types and tells me I'm stupid. Nope. See, he said I'm awesome.
On the
He
roster.
said it.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
right there. Mike's awesome. I saw it. All right. And speaking of Matty, let's talk about Lanier Bryant, the left fielder who also bats left-handed, who was taken with the 19th selection in the draft. What are people's thoughts on him?
Honestly, in the that the what do you want to call it, the mogul void of the teen picks, I liked him. I really did. Like I said, I had him typed in at 11 to pick, and then I actually took Gill ahead of him. There wasn't much I don't like about this guy, and even though like he's not that flashy, rangy, massive arm or anything guy, he's going to be a good, solid left fielder. He's obviously going to be a great contact guy, being a lefty, and he's still going to hit you a decent amount of home runs. Like he's not going to, he's not going to be your 30 home run a year guy, but he's still going to give you enough offensive production that you can stick him out in left field and not even have to worry about him. Like, I don't think he's going to be like, Carwile for me, who's dropping 22 fucking errors a year with a good bat. But he's gonna put up those style numbers, and I think But Matty took him. I think Matty's gonna be really happy with him in the outfield.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's a guy that I'd probably plug in like the 2-hole. I mean, he's gonna be solid in the outfield. He's gonna have big contact, decent
He's a good
speed,
number 2 guy.
and he'll hit a couple. I'd
Depending on
plug him right in the 2-hole and just love him.
Depending on how his lefty contact comes up, because it's not that bad right now, honestly. He would probably be. I know a lot of guys like more power numbers, but I think he'd even be a good number 3 guy because I think he's going to have the contact and the eye to be able to hit you in a lot of guys and still hit you a fair amount of home runs to drive in some RBIs.
Yep, I think as Matty's saying, he's going to be center field. It's not a bad choice. I think with his range, and I think he could be a decent center fielder. I think I like that thought pattern. So we'll see. We'll see. No, could you have anything on him?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, realistically, even before Matty said that, if you saw him as a center fielder, he looks so much better than Troy Jacoby, and they have pretty much the same defense.
Yeah.
So the fact that it's 3 picks later, I actually liked Bryant quite a bit. Kind of reminds me in some ways of just quickly looking kind of like Curry on Boston, except Curry has a very good eye, but kind of that same build where obviously he's going to be stronger against righties than lefties. But if you get kind of that potential out of him and you don't get an injury that looks like it could have dropped someone, that's a pretty good player at pick 19.
Yeah, no, I agree. I like him. Matty was quick to point out earlier to me in private chat that based on my draft reviews, which are already out for those who haven't read them yet, it seemed like I was favoring Jacoby over Bryant. That's not the case. Like I said, Jacoby was not on my board. Bryant was. He was definitely a guy that I would have been looking at 20 had he gotten there. But when I grade my draft picks, I take the draft class and kind of try to put it in a vacuum compared to everything else. So that's how I grade, just to try to keep it fair. So I do not like Jacoby more than Bryant. So if people read that, that might be a mistake in the way that I worded it. But I definitely like him better than Jacoby by quite a bit. So moving on to pick 20. So 2/3 of the way through the first round. And we're looking at Aaron Cloninger, who is a left-handed starting pitcher. What do we think about Cloninger?
He was on my do not draft list.
I don't know why you're laughing, Dan. I'm not surprised.
I'll just say this. So this last rebuild I did, talking a lot with Mass, we went in and we were like really looking at the, how Mogul says everything works and who's going to be your best pitchers. And so I went on a power movement run. I'll say this, I'm not a power movement guy anymore. And this is what I think he's going to be, as a power movement guy. I don't think his controls, his control might, if you're really lucky, I don't know if it'll hit 80. Maybe it will, but I don't think it will. He is your type of guy. He's that power movement fastball guy. I think he's going to have a great fastball. The problem is he's also your one pitch guy that you always seem to always go after. And so, at 20 to have a 93 peaked pitcher fall into your lap, I could see why you would have grabbed him, but I wouldn't have touched him.
Yeah, listen, there are some red flags there, sure. I understand that. He was one of those guys that when I was scouting the draft, I looked at him, I said, if he falls, maybe I'll take him, but we'll see. And then when I watched him fall today, I decided that I couldn't pass up him. I kind of had to take him over another lefty that I liked in the spot too. And here was my reason behind that. Yeah, fastball. I like the fastball. The curve's not that far behind. And as Matty's pointing out, the home runs don't seem to be a concern. And he has that big strikeout to walk ratio, which I do like in a lefty. It'll be interesting. It'll be kind of interesting to see. I think Matty just said it as well. It'll very much determine what happens on his birthday. And I think that's coming up here soon. So it will be interesting to see kind of how or what happens at that point. It might speak to where he goes from here. But he also has a decent ground ball rate, which is something you don't usually see in this build. He's already at 45%, and we all know that that's going to go up a little bit. Maybe not to 50, but it could hit 50 or just close to it. Maybe an inch above it. So you see him hit close to 50 in the ground ball rate and get over 80 with the control, which I think is a reasonable assumption since he's already at 68. Then you really start to like this pitcher even more than, or for some of you, actually start to like him. But I will start to like him even more if those two things occur. Now, again, I understand those are big ifs, but.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, you probably are going to be a little surprised, as Matty kind of pointed out. He's got the minor league numbers that I always talk about. He's got the 79 fastball. He's got a 45 ground ball, and he's got 73 power. The reason that I don't like him is, honestly, if he was, say 62 overall or something like that with the 73 power and slightly less movement, probably would love him. I just feel that some of the pitchers that I originally liked that were kind of similar to this build and never really came that way. I don't remember the left-handed pitcher that I traded you, MZ, a few years ago.
Train wreck.
Yeah. He got me Seth Key. He was one of those people, and like literally a train wreck. I don't even know if he still exists as a person.
I sent him to the Mets for a pick like a season or two later.
Well, congrats. You got something out of nothing. So that's good. Like, I don't know. For me, once again, the home runs are only 11 in 102 innings. It doesn't actually look that bad, but it just goes to the fact that he's a lefty, and those home runs are going to go up. I actually at first kind of liked him, and the more I looked at him, and the closer I looked at some of the other draft picks I've made in the past, I kind of turned that around. As well, it's kind of interesting that I just don't think his movement really gets to the spot that he needs to be, and my fear is he could be something like a 80 control, maybe 88 power, and like 84 or 85 movement, which is not a bad set if you're a right-handed pitcher. But if you're a left-handed pitcher, it never usually bodes well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. You're right. If he gets to be more of the 83 control, 85 power, like 91 or more movement, even as a lefty, you're looking at a pitcher that's going to pitch pretty well. And again, I also take in the fact that left-handed pitchers pitch generally pretty well in Seattle. So Maddie's saying he projects a little bit.
It wasn't the worst pick of the first round, so that's a good thing.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, right.
The other thing I look at too is, I mean, just knowing our league in general, he's a 93 peaked pitcher going at 20. There's a reason why 19 guys didn't take him. I don't know exactly what it was, but I know if he's that fucking good, I know Hokey's grabbing him. I know Maddie's grabbing him. I know Pete's grabbing him. I know Andy's grabbing him. That's why
that was one thing that did me a little bit.
GB would jump up to grab him too.
When he went right past Cleveland at 19, I did take a kind of a stutter step and think about it a little bit more, but then I just said fuck it. So Jeff Turner, 21 overall to Cincinnati.
And moving on.
That was as smooth a transition as you're ever going to hear on the radio. So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I'm good with skipping.
Skipping over Jeff Turner, you're good with?
What? We're skipping Jeff Turner? Okay.
No, I was kidding. I don't know. Again,
I was going to say we're pretty confident Theo's not going to listen to this. Then are we? We're just going to totally skip him.
No, you know what? He looks like he could be relatively decent, like maybe a bench player. I just don't necessarily see him becoming much more. Once again, I still like him better than Troy Jacoby. So in terms of center fielder, that's a bonus. But I still think there's a couple outfielders that you could move from right field to center fielder still if you really wanted to. That might still be a better choice.
Yeah, I don't think his contact's going to be anything to be excited about. I think it's going to be similar to Jacoby's. I think the power is going to be about the same too. Speed, I think Jacoby's going to be a little bit better with speed, but I think Turner's going to have a far better eye and a far better defensive set. So he's a guy that I think that you look at as maybe a superior fourth outfielder. I would have taken him. All right, we'll see. Matty mildly approves of my pick. So Jeff Turner is definitely a fourth outfielder. Or, again, you could see him as a starter on one of those, not quite playoff contenders, not quite rebuilder teams, or definitely on a rebuilder team. But I don't know. He's a lefty. He's 20, so there is a little bit of room to grow. So he could end up better than we think. He's definitely not a bad pick at this part of the round, but you're right. There's probably a couple other guys that might have been better choices that went toward the end of the round.
Yeah, see, when I saw him get taken here, he was another guy that I had slotted for second round that I started to realize that, wow, the middle of this draft isn't as good as I thought it was. Because guys like him are going in the first round. I would move him to left personally. I don't think he's not going to light the world on fire. I think he's going to be a good runner. If the contact comes around, he'll be good against righties. Obviously, he's going to be pretty decent against righties. He's either a number 2 or 7 guy for me. But like you guys said, he's not going to be. He's what he is. He's an 86 guy. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to Felipe Aguilar. First baseman, left-handed, went to the Dodgers at 22 overall.
Yeah, he was on my board. I wanted him. I was actually at one point, because I started seeing this draft slowly slip away to I thought about trading up, maybe in the 29 to 32 range, and just grabbing him. And then he went here, so I was kind of disappointed. But he'll be a solid all-around first baseman. I mean, he doesn't have to hit. I don't think he has to hit 95 to be good. I think he's going to be pretty decent. He's a good fielding first baseman, and he should have the power and the contact numbers to be a reasonably good starting first baseman. The eye scares me a little bit.
Yeah, I would be worried about the eye a bit. I think he reminds me a bit of the guy that I have. I believe it's my DH right now, not quite my first base. No, he's my first baseman. Damian Vasquez. Kind of reminds me of that. He's going to have good contact, okay power, okay eye. But it's a player that you like to have. A guy that's going to hit over 300 and probably hit 25 home runs a year. Like, yeah, maybe not everybody's ideal first baseman, but it's a good first baseman, a good bat to have at the very least on your squad.
And I'm going to do the exact opposite as you guys and say I love this pick. Like, he was pretty much outside of those two pitchers and a couple other people that I knew I was never going to get, and he was pretty much on top of my board. And in terms of that, he hit the fact that his contact and power are there. I kind of actually see him more like a poor man's Nace or something along those lines, where he's going to have his power and contact be relatively high, but his eye is going to be like a little bit lower, right? Yes, his eye looks terrible, and this is why I don't draft hitters, because for vitals, I think his vitals are going to be great. But what will end up happening is he can't hit, because that's usually what happens when I draft. So I kind of love this pick in that regard.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad pick, especially this part of the draft. I had to read that twice because I thought I misread it. He's a contract fluff guy. I completely jumbled those words and letters around and read something completely
like a professional
non-work appropriate. So yeah, that's kind of. I'm like, why Merkins? What the fuck? Okay, no. All right, so moving on to the next Cubs pick, Mr. James Cunningham, 21-year-old left-handed pitcher out of the great UC Irvine College. What do we think about Mr. Cunningham?
Yep. The only thing that worries me about him, and it's just this, it's not based on anything. I'll be 100% honest with you. It is not based on anything other than total fear of guys I've seen like this that are just 80, and boom, they shoot up. And then the next thing you know, they peak off at 76. But it really is not based in anything. It's just something I've seen a lot. And that's what scares me about him. Other than that, I mean, he's a one-pitch guy. He has decent curve, decent circle change. Nothing that's going to be a great supportive second pitch, I don't think. But his vitals look good. I mean, he's a control movement guy. Hopefully his control keeps up with his overall. And, I mean, he looks good. But just the way that jump happens out of that just spike like that just scares the shit out of me about him. And listen, honestly, nothing, I don't want to get berated in chat of that means nothing, but I've seen that before and then it just tails off into fucking nothingness only because half my minor league is filled with those guys.
Yeah, he had a 4-point jump this year, and that was he went from a 65.81 to a 71.85. I like lefties more than most other people, but I did not have him on my board. I was not a huge fan. Like you look at his stats, which again we could debate all night whether that's good or bad. You look at his pitches, and I looked at all of that. I'm like, things look good, but there's just something about him that doesn't feel right. And I kind of fall into that feel category too on him. Something just didn't feel right about him. So I was not a big fan of his personally.
Yeah, I once again, there's still a couple left-handed pitchers that I liked more. You're gonna hate this, but I did like it better than Cloninger, so that's one thing. Because honestly, even if Cunningham doesn't become a good pitcher, it's one of the reasons. Like, his control and his movement are going to move regardless. So if he does hit like 82 overall and that's where he finishes, it's going to be both are going to be in around the 82 mark, right? There's really not a chance of it being full failure that way. So that's the only way I'm looking at it. But
so he hit a higher floor, is what you're saying?
Yeah. So I mean, if you're going to miss on a pick, he's the one that's going to miss less.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's the only thing. Like, once again, I would say that there's definitely some other picks that are 2 picks away, for instance, where I might take a chance more.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll talk nicely of Mr. Reville in a minute too, because I attempted with LA at the very least to try to trade up, so I could pick him as well, because I was a big fan of his. When Cunningham went, I thought for sure that he might slip down to me, and he just missed. But let's move on to the right fielder that we all, I believe, tend to like, which is Mr. Tomas Barrientos. What did everybody think of Tomas?
I love him.
Yeah, I liked him too. He was on my board too.
Yeah, I mean he's straight up a DH. So once again, we can clear the air that way. And if you really don't care about any fielding in left field, then he's a left fielder. Like there's no problem that way. But he's going to hit the ball. There's no doubt about that. He is going to hit it very well. And I think that's kind of what you want. And when you look at the picks that were taken before, Carey going 8th, Takahama going 13th, a whole bunch of terrible center fielders that went. What is bad about this pick? You got arguably one of the best outfielders in the draft.
Nah, I totally agree with you.
19, probably lefty, high contact, good power, solid eye. Nothing against that. That's a great pick to have.
I would argue with one of these picks that this guy may be the best bat in the draft. They'd be a close one too. Just because he's more I think the guy you picked he was more of a power eye guy. He didn't really have the contact this guy has. I think this guy's going to be a better overall batter. Not just straight like a masher, but a better overall average power, has it all except for speed guy.
Well, I think the guy that you took next round is going to be a better bat than this guy.
You think Street will be?
I do.
Interesting.
Not by much, and just call a hunch. But I just had this feeling that even with his massive, which kind of plummeted him out of the first and into the mid-second, I think his bat's going to be very similar. Like if you had both of them, you'd kind of have a righty-lefty like twin kind of thing going on. I think they're going to have very similar bats. So Andy tried to chime in. I heard him, but I don't know if he's still there.
Oh, I didn't even hear him. Oh.
That's because you guys were fighting about how much you love Tomas, so.
I hear him like... There he is.
That Barrientos fell that far. In my opinion, after the guy Stang took and I took, he was the third best outfielder on the board.
Yeah, I agree. I'm surprised he fell that far too.
I know he's a DH, but in terms of offense, you're not going to find a better left-handed bat probably maybe in the entire draft. There were a couple taken before him, but I would have taken him over Bryant for sure. I would have taken him over Turner for sure. I like Jacoby more than you guys, but I'd have still taken him before Jacoby. I'd have taken him before Takahama. And I like Cohen all right. They're probably roughly similar to me, but other than Marjorie Banks and Young, he was the best outfielder on the board.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue with you there.
Yeah, I'm too tired to argue, even if I wanted to, which I don't. So, moving on to Brian Reville, a 21-year-old lefty that Doug came out of nowhere to take. Just as I was about to type his name. Not going to lie, I actually had his name typed into my thing, and I had to delete it. I was kind of upset about that. What do we think about Brian Reville? And yes, he's a 21-year-old lefty, so we'll already kind of discredit him for that.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? He's kind of the build I like, right? Yeah, be great if he was a righty. Probably would have went far earlier if he was a righty, to be honest. But once again, he's got already the high fastball. He's probably going to be a home run machine. That might be the only downside with 25 ground ball and giving up a fair bit of home runs in the minors. But he literally has everything that you want. You know that his power is going to be somewhere around like a 90. And my general rule is, control, maybe it goes to 70 or 75, but then his movement's at like a 90 because movement does do. I know Maddie's done the math, but is it like 1.5 times or 2 times like the jump that control would do? So in terms of that, he's probably going to be somewhere in around the 75 control and 93 power, 90 something movement, and there's nothing wrong with that. Now, does that mean he's going to perform well? Who knows? And
Right.
if he doesn't, just trade him to me and I'll take him.
Yeah, thanks for beating me to that. Yeah, I would have gladly have taken him. I was actually looking forward to having him. Because you're right, I think he'll get his control will probably be in the mid 70s maybe, which isn't ideal. But his power should be in the upper 90s, and his movement should get into the mid to upper 80s. So you're gonna have a pretty solid pitcher in your hands. The home runs might be an issue. The walks to strikeouts don't seem to be an issue, which is something. He looks to be a good pitcher. Good. My power's starting to flicker again. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we're still here.
I'll jump in. If Doug wants any value out of this guy, he should convert him to the bullpen right now. This guy's garbage.
I'm with you, Andy. He wasn't even on my board.
He's a 21-year-old with a 25% ground ball percentage whose control is basically equal to his movement. This guy will lucky to be an effective left-handed bullpen arm. He's going to get, and he looks like he has a home run problem. So I don't know how Doug will get this guy in the starting rotation unless he wants to lose. This guy needs to go in the bullpen now. He's not good.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I looked at him once, didn't even, as soon as I saw 58 control, I just hit the arrow button and went on to the next guy. If he's just not worth it. He's gonna have what? He's probably gonna have over a 4/9 walk rate, I would guess. And if his walk rate's that high and he's giving up that many home runs, he's gonna get shelled. I'm
with you. He was not on my board at all.
Yep.
There are definitely some red flags there, but personally, I was willing to take a chance on him. And again, maybe I just get a little too confident in my park and lefties, but I was willing to give him a shot. So, all right, but we'll move on from Ravel to Jeremy Whitting, 26, second baseman, who is 19.
Did I say that out loud?
You did. The question is whether you meant it.
You always have one of these guys. You always have one of these picks, man. You always have one of them. I mean, granted, he is nice. He really is. He's got the defense. He's got those vitals that look good right now, but he's a peak 82. And I'm not saying that he may be that sleeper that none of us can pick, but I just see him as being Travis Turner for me. Like he's going to sit on your bench for 15 seasons and be the greatest backup you've ever had and jump in short starting roles when he needs to. But he'll never be an everyday starter.
Yeah, I don't get me wrong. It was maybe a bit of a reach or a bit of a risk to take him this high. And I kind of went back and forth on it for a while there between him and a couple other players, one of which I ended up getting in the second round anyway, so it worked out for me. But I liked him, especially when I said, you know what, I think I've seen this before. Let me go back and look. So I did. So I went back and looked at everybody's actual favorite second baseman, Chris Clements, and they were near identical. day. Yes, Clements had, I think, 2 more points of peak, but everything else was very close to identical. So, do I think he's going to be that good? No. I mean, he's going to need a hell of a winter ball and a little bit of help past that to get to that level of everything. But he was a guy that wasn't going to make um, too much farther anyway. Too many people saw him or kind of waiting to grab him. So I kind of pulled a Houston or Texas and just drafted him in the late first where I had a pick to take him at. So at the very worst, yeah, he'll be a very good bench guy. So and not ideal, but I'll live with it.
I think you're going to get the guy Texas got. That's not going to happen.
No, like I said, I highly doubt that will happen.
It can't. I mean, it was pretty obvious on draft day that Clements had more time than some of these guys usually have to develop. I think your more comparable guy to look at with this is Glenn Martin. You want him to turn out like Glenn Martin.
And I'd be perfectly okay with it.
Yeah, and Lavalier would be another one to compare him to. So you basically have 2 years, and he looks like he's probably peaking. Maybe 3, maybe 1. I don't know, because when you look at his last jump, he got a nice jump, but his peak stayed the same, which tells me
yes,
he's peaking at 20, 21, or 22. Now, you get a 5-6 point jump out of him his next time, you're looking at a startable player, in my opinion. Defensively, he can handle either middle infield position. He runs really well, and he'll get on base a little bit. You might hit him 9th, but he'll be all right. Your upside with him is low, but he's got a pretty high floor, which is what you guys are talking about. But he'll never be Clements. Clements clearly had more room to grow, and Warpriest made an excellent grab snagging that kid.
Yep. All right, Albert Valencia.
I was just going to say, plus Clements will hit for more power. Maddie's right to point out that Whiting will have trouble getting the ball in the air over the shortstop. He's going to have to ground a lot of infield hits through because he really has absolutely no power whatsoever.
Yeah. All right, Albert Valencia, switch hitter, 19, right fielder.
Another guy I had on my board. Another guy I was hoping was going to make it to the second round, as they all started to drop off very fast in the first round. Liked him as a guy that could, get in there and, hold down either corner position. Probably would have been a left fielder. I don't think even though everybody sees 88 range and says center field, definitely not a right fielder, doesn't have the arm for it. But definitely a good third outfielder that'll just throw in there if you have 2 good guys on the other side of him. My opinion. He's a good all-around outfielder. Yeah, no superstar, but he's all right. He's good.
He's a guy that seems to have a good contact, solid eye, but not a lot of power, not maybe a little speed. Looks to have good range. Like he was a guy that I wasn't going to take, but not a bad choice necessarily, even in this part of the draft.
Is all right. I mean, he can't, like you guys said, he can field all 3 positions. The problem is, what are you going to get from his bat? You're going to get a guy that gets on base, but he can't run terribly well, doesn't hit for any power. Again, a guy with very little extra base ability. He only has basically a handful of doubles and a couple home runs throughout his AMI career, which indicates that 61 power is pretty weak. But he can field. He's a switch hitter. And for where Peter got him, I thought he got good value.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree. When you look at what was honestly taken before, it's kind of that concept, right? It's better than some of the people that were taken before. He's not going to be amazing, but we all know Peter will turn it into something better, which is always a benefit.
Indeed. All right. 3 picks left. Next one is Mr. Nomar Contes, who is a right fielder who went to the White Sox. Nomar looks to be a solid bat, honestly. And again, guy might end up in left field, I think, if he ends up in the field at all. Pretty good contact, some good power. But the eye, I think, is going to lag a little bit behind to make him kind of a good hitter.
Yeah. DH at best. But that's me. I've already said it 15 times already.
It's an auto pick, so what are you gonna do for JPS on that? But yeah, I think is probably the best you can wrap it up. He's a DH who doesn't have good contact, and he's right-handed with splits that are pretty dominant against lefties. So yeah, not a great pick there, but it's
now when you get autoed at the end of the first or even the early second, you're kind of at the mercy of the mogul gods. So
yeah, he wasn't even on the board.
Let's jump on to the 17-year-old Scott Thomas, right-handed pitcher, who came to us via high school in Canada. If Canada has high schools, I'm assuming they just have hockey rinks, but I don't know. So Scott Thomas, what do we? Could be both. That's true. What do we think about Mr. Thomas?
Vitals look good. I mean, he has a good control. He has a good power, so you know that the movement's going to start jumping up. He has at this point in time, he has 2 pitches. I'm sure the overall is going to jump past that circle change at some point. Personally, taken way too early. Another guy I had slotted in like the third, like to grab in the third with one of my picks in the third. Looks good, good build, 17 years old, so he has room to grow. But personally, I think just taken too early.
Yeah, he was a guy that I had slotted for if I'd kept my second round picks somewhere in that range. Looks like he might have decent control, decent movement. Like it could be a good 5th starter, maybe. But yeah, I think he went a bit earlier than he should have. It's not a guy that I would like trade up to get. Let's put it like that. Even at 17, plenty of room to grow. 32 upside. I mean, that's all good. Decent ground ball rate. Doesn't seem to have a home run problem, but it's a little bit higher than what I want to see. And his OBA is pretty bad those last 3 years. I mean, really bad. So that is concern. But again, considering how young he was, maybe a little bit less so. But yeah, I don't know.
That TT converts to the bullpen. I mean, with the low endurance, the low health, the fact that he's only got 2 pitches, the 40% ground ball, the lack of a dynamic profile. I mean, this could be a guy. Now, I don't think you take a guy in the first round. You're planning to convert to a reliever, but this guy could be an option to get converted into a middle reliever because his 67 endurance could still drop low enough where he could actually be a functional bullpen arm. I'm with you guys. I see here to love. I think he probably got overdrafted because of the lack of starting pitching in this draft.
Yeah, starting pitching was a bit lacking in this draft, which is funny because everybody was talking in the chats all the last couple of weeks, like, oh, the pitching's so much better than last year, and I disagreed wholeheartly, but I didn't want to ruin it for them.
It was, but that's because last year was a shit fest.
yeah, last year was bad.
I think this year's draft class was worse than last year's, but maybe that's just me.
Because I had a lot of picks in both of these, and last year I felt like I was pulling at people I didn't want in the second round, and this year at least it waited until about the 4th or 5th round.
Well, I was done last year by the start of the second, so maybe it was just me not being there long enough to see all the shit show that happened. So
quick last year.
Yeah, he was at least on my draft list, but once again, probably just drafted a little bit early. There's a couple players taken in the second round that, you just kind of hope that they end up being better, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe one of the guys you're talking about is Feinley from Washington. I would have for sure taken him over this guy.
Yeah.
He was taken 5 or 6 picks later, and I would have taken him for sure over Thomas. Probably would have taken Mulgrew over him as well.
Well, speaking of other pitchers that people probably didn't like, what about Kirk McGurk? I'm just going to go with McGurk. That's not it, but I'm going to pretend it is.
So this is where I'm going to use my minor league stats and say, boy, he's atrocious.
Right?
He's 16. I mean, that's the only upside.
Whoa.
So he's just gonna suck for a really long time.
Right. He
I have to
reminds me
wait
a lot.
even longer to be disappointed by him.
Yeah, right. He reminds me a lot of just Skylark, who was taken a couple drafts ago by New York, and kind of taken for the same reason. He's 16. Why not? But like, oof. Even this guy has that build that no, he doesn't have the build. I just don't. He was a guy that I looked at a couple times, like, oh, he's 16. There's got to be something redeemable there. And then when I realized the only redeemable thing was he's 16, I quickly said, oof, I better not.
Yeah. Same thing. He wasn't even on my board. 53 control, right past him. I mean, he does have two pitches. I mean, he has three, but he's going to jump above the circle change. But that 53 control, no way.
And maybe the slider too. Don't.
Oh my God! All sixes. Ugh.
He walked more than he struck out 3 out of 4 years. Like,
He's a special type of talent, is what you're saying.
I'm saying he's the type of talent that I hope that my rivals have, because I would love to see him pitch against me.
Yeah.
He's a good rebuilder.
All right, and that
that transition time, that like shooting for 50 wins guy.
He's more of a shooting for 35 wins guy. I hate to say it, but I just poor Chicago.
One in my 5th starter spot.
Yeah,
and I don't know. That was an auto, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm not gonna lie. His next autoed pick I liked so much more. So yeah.
Well, that was what Arthur. Oh, okay. So yeah, I wasn't a huge fan of his either. But all right, so we've covered the first round. So now everybody just take a couple picks that they liked in the second or third, and then we can kind of wrap this up in a relatively short order. So picks in the second that we thought were good picks.
You guys are looking. I'll give you guys a couple minutes to look. TT asked me, because I didn't hear your top 5 picks. I didn't hear. Well, I don't know. Maybe it was 5. I heard starting with Sheeran. I didn't hear any of the other guys before that. But TT asked me what I thought of Bagnold. Mizzy, what did you guys say about Bagnold?
I think we were kind of not all for it, but not all against it. I think we'd like to. I honestly forget. I think we were maybe split. Some of us liked him, some of us didn't. I thought maybe there was better players potentially to pick in that spot.
Yeah, I thought of the third baseman, he was the best, but I was like, he's still not great.
Yeah, I think the overall consensus was not a consensus number one.
I don't like that contact.
Right.
Or he's the one with the low eye, right?
Yes.
He's the one going to strike out 150 times. Yeah.
Right.
So I saw Maddie in the chat. I'll talk about this while you guys are looking for your second rounders. I saw Maddie in the chat compare him to Ben Karn. And I think that's a fairly decent comp. They were very similar. As I'm looking at Ben Karn's profile from when he was drafted, he looks like he was a 64, 74, 70, 63 compared to 69, 78, 70, 66. So, and the defense is very, very similar. Health similar. Age is even very similar. So I think the comp with Karn is a pretty good one, but there are a couple differences. The first is that Bagnold's shown a lot more power than Karn did in his AMI stats. And on top of that, most of the vitals are slightly higher. Now his overall is slightly higher too. So I think the comp is a pretty good one, but I don't know many people that are going to be sad that they have Ben Karn on their team. Ben Karn's a pretty good player, and it's possible Bagnold is better. He might have better contact. He might have better power, and he's a true third baseman as opposed to Karn, who's one of those weird second base, third base guys we have that doesn't seem to be able to play either one particularly well, or they're okay at both. But he's a true, legit third baseman, and I do think he has potential to be better offensively than Karn. So Karn to me is already a high-end player, so I think Doug got himself a pretty darn good player there. Although now that I'm looking at Ben Karn's production in Montreal, he hasn't turned out like I thought he would.
Well, that goes with most of the players we draft. They don't quite turn out like we thought they would.
Yeah.
I think Bagnall is going to be better than that. I think he was the clear best bat in the draft in terms of what you can bank on. I think there are guys with some more upside to them a little bit, but I think Bagnall was probably your best sure thing in this draft. That answers the question. TT said he compares him to Phil Warner. I don't know if he's got as much pop as Pop Warner does, but he looks like he might. I'd have to pull up what Philip Warner looked like on draft day, but I think that's another fairly good comp.
Yeah, I think the power will be there. I think the contact will be there. The eye that I think is the big concern.
That brings me to something I did hear you guys talking about earlier, the concerns with the eye. Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to get players that have everything great. I mean, if we could all get 95 contact, power, speed, and eye, we'd be thrilled, right? So not everybody's going to have all of those skills. Pop Warner has never had eye either. And yes, while his on-base percentage is not going to make anybody drool, you're probably going to take that 850 OPS and the 40 bombs all day long and not give a shit about that, right? So sometimes I think we get too worried about, oh, this guy is like one thing away from being perfect. Well, yeah, perfect doesn't really happen. What you want to look for is, what's this guy going to bring? And I think Beck's going to bring probably a 35, 40 home run guy who plays Gold Glove defense. That has a ton of value. Even if his on-base percentage ends up being 310, who gives a fuck if he's putting 40 home runs and 150 RBIs on the board, or 120 or whatever it might be? That's I think something, and I heard that when you guys were talking about Eric Young too. I fully agree. Eric Young's going to have a high contact rate that's not going to translate into a huge batting average. He's going to not K a lot. He'll probably hit 320, but he's going to play great defense. He's going to steal a bunch of bags, and he's going to get on base. Those are the things I care about with him. If he had a better eye, would that be great? Hell yeah. But I wouldn't have got that at 14 overall in the draft if he had a great eye. So sometimes I think we look for too much perfection rather than saying, yeah, this guy has a couple weaknesses, but damn, he's going to be good at these things, and that's going to make him a hell of a player.
Yeah, well, I don't think you're wrong. I think we definitely tend to look at those players that this league doesn't quite produce. Not that it should either, but yeah, if you want a guy that's all straight 90s across the board, then go to one of NWU's. There's generally tons of them sitting there.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, and we've never had many guys like that in general. Most of our speed guys have either good contact or good eye. It's very rare to find somebody who's got really high eye and contact and speed. And it's very rare to find somebody who's got really high power and contact and eye. That's why those guys are in the Hall of Fame, and the rest of us are patching up here and there with a couple different things, right? So, and that's why I'm sure I heard you guys kind of were not real big on Rosser. And that's one of the reasons why I like Rosser. He's got time to bring that contact to 70, whereas I'm not sure Sam Cabano is going to get to 70 overall for contact. So
yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to see how those two kind of play it out over the next couple seasons to see which one ends up being better, because it might be tighter than I think in the end. I know I was one of the ones that wasn't high. I mean, he was on my list of people to look at 20. It's not like he wasn't on my board at all, but he was just not a guy I was super high on.
If you give Rosser 8 more points than overall, what's the difference in the profile going to be? Well, it's going to be that he's a little better defensively. His contact's going to be for sure better, and his power will probably be a little bit behind Cabano, and his eye will be better. And he's 3 years younger. So I looked at those two and said, well, Rosser will be Cabano in probably a year and has potential to be much more than that by the time he's 19. Whereas Cabano, I know what I'm going to get. He's a guy who's probably going to be a 70, 90, 80 type first baseman who can't really play first base. He'll hit a ton of home runs, and I had nothing against a guy who does that. But I looked at where can I get a little bit better contact, and that's, I hope, with Rosser, because he's 16. And his numbers in the minors indicate that he's got time.
Yeah, no, the one thing you do have there is time. I mean, that's half the reason why I drafted Tao last year, is because he was so young, had plenty of time for him to mature into something that would be extremely helpful for me. So yeah, he has the time. It'll be interesting to see kind of what he comes to.
You guys got your second round picks lined up after I took all that time?
Oh,
Yep.
I've had him lined up since before we started. But so as for me in the second round, again, I'm not going to go over every. It's just I want to get to bed at a reasonable hour. I think LA did really well in the second round. I really liked Randy Street. Yeah, he took a huge hit at his birthday. I mean, I think he dropped like 7 points or something like that. It was a crazy big drop, but I really like that bat. I think that's going to be a scary bat to find kind of in that early to mid second round. And I really liked Argyle, the young pitcher that he picked up a couple picks later. I thought both those were quite good picks. Also was a fan of the guy Washington took, Findlay. He was a guy that I considered in those mid 20s early on, and then kind of ignored toward as draft day approached. But I still kind of like him. San Francisco, O'Reilly, the third baseman. I think he's going to be better than a lot of people think. I kind of dug that pick. Toronto took Ritter. I think Ritter went a little earlier than I thought he would, but could be a solid pitcher when it comes down to it. And that's kind of where I'm at with the second. I mean, a couple guys that went a little bit later that I was a fan of too. Leon Bulger went to Minnesota. I liked that relief pitcher. And Thacker, who Houston took. I was a bit of a fan of Thacker as well.
I think Street is going to be so good.
He might not be. I mean, that drop was massive. If he can kind of come back from that, I would say that he
bothers me. I guess I'm confused why you think he'll be an offensive force, because I look at his profile. He doesn't seem to hit for a lot of power. He doesn't have speed. His contact's not great. His eye's all right. He's not a very good defensive player. He's got a decent arm. He might be able to play in left field. As Maddie points out, he probably doesn't have a lot of development time because his overall and his peak dropped. So sorry, OWM, or Dan, sorry, whichever one you want to be referred to, but I don't see the offensive force. You can, if you go a couple picks before that, you want to look at Sean Pear, I at least see where the offensive force is on a guy like him. On Street, I don't know what you're going to get out of him.
He was kind of, honestly, with him, he was kind of just someone who I didn't have really any bats in this area. As a matter of fact, when I look at the second, like I like O'Reilly, and probably one that wasn't that I probably will get booed off the chat for. I like the Sergio I don't even know if I'm not even going to attempt it. Last name. I liked him. I liked his build. I like how he looks. Maybe not as a starter, maybe as a reliever, depending on how he moves. But being at 18, I liked him and was kind of upset he didn't drop to me. So Street was kind of Mike DM'd me right beforehand, and I was like, yeah, I was looking at him, honestly. I liked O'Reilly, but I didn't want to take him because that contact just scared me away from him, and no one else was jumping out to me at that point. So that's really why I grabbed him. Just kind of hope he jumps back up and looks good as maybe a DH. I know he's not a fielder. Like, he doesn't fit my build to ever put in a field. He just kind of was a guy that was sitting there that I didn't see anyone else sitting around at the time, to be honest with you, at that spot. I was going to go for one of the relievers, but it still felt too early to pull the strings on one of those guys. So he was just kind of like a grab at where he was. He wasn't even anybody I was looking at probably until, to be honest with you, 5 picks before I picked him.
I was just curious. Mizzy's mentioned it a couple times, and I don't see it.
No. He was just he was just hope he gets there guy is basically what he was at that pick for me.
You got Hokey?
I mean, for me, the player I liked in the second round was Neil Werthmeyer or whatever. But in terms of Street, yeah, I kind of agree with everything that was said. I kind of like Ben Burton a little bit more, although his eye is not fantastic by any standard. Yeah, that was kind of my big one. And the second was, I think, Wertheimer. If he got a relatively good jump and decent winter ball results, he could end up being one of the better pitchers that Colorado has drafted. I know that's a very large stretch with being 81 overall, or 81 peak, but that's just kind of the way I looked at it. And then
now, he has that nice build that I like to see.
Yeah, and then
does,
in the third round, just because you listed a whole bunch of people, I don't know what his name is, but Juan Bachano or something like that. I thought he was even better than Street. He went,
the guy that Houston took.
Yeah. So I don't know what you guys have in terms of thoughts on that, but I just think if you're gonna take someone like that, I'd much rather have some guy with higher 60 overall vitals, and him only being 59 overall gives a good chance where he could overdevelop, right? Or he could have a bunch of stats that usually get me into trouble.
Well, it could be one, it could be the other. Only time's going to tell any of this, honestly.
So Percy talked about his guy Marabona, so we can talk about him for a second. I like that he's switch hitting. He's got a little bit of speed, so he won't kill you on the bases. He can play right field. He's got a good eye. He's a solid pick. He's not going to give you any power. Doesn't look like he's going to be a doubles hitter. It looks like. So I thought Marabona was a solid pick. If I had to pick my second round guys, I do like Dan's pick of Argyle. I thought that was a good value there. Ritter, I thought was a sneaky pick by Corey. I was hoping he was going to fall a little bit longer. De Palabos, he must have jumped right before the draft, right? Because I thought he was going to be more of a later round pick based on his peak.
He did jump.
I believe. Let me double check.
Because he came out of nowhere. I didn't even know who he was, and then all of a sudden I'm looking at him. I'm like, oh yeah, he's worth the second.
he was on my list.
Yeah, he was a guy on my list.
Lower.
Yeah, he was a 50-79, jumped to 65-85.
It is. Yeah, that was a good pick. It kind of caught me off guard that he was even there. Because when Ryan and I were talking about who we were looking at 39, that was a guy that I kept going back to, going, damn, who was this guy? He's on my list, but he's much lower. So yeah, I think Stang jumped up and got himself a really good player there. I mentioned Pare or whatever for Jason in Chicago. I think he'll be a pretty good bat too. And then I'm curious about this guy, Balbonton. I don't know what to make of him. SXR picked him in the second round. I looked at him a lot in the second round, trying to figure out if I liked him or not. There are reasons, obviously, not to like him, like his control is so far behind, but he does have a nice fastball. It seemed like he contained home runs pretty well in college. He's got a decent ground ball percentage.
Nice sinker.
To develop a lot is what like.
Yeah, he actually kind of reminds me of Cloninger, or whatever his name was.
I was
like a less poor man's version. Yeah.
About to say he looks.
Yeah, he's a right-handed pitcher, and he's not going to give up bombs like Cloninger will for Seattle.
We'll see.
Hey,
it's
I got one more.
It's early. It's early. I'm still holding out hope.
TT's here. I did like Harry Lerner. I thought he got good value on Lerner at the end of the second round.
I think I mentioned that in my draft recap. I did like that pick as well.
A huge pop end of the second round to get a guy he's a competent first baseman too. I mean, I don't know how long he's going to have to develop, but his skills tab indicates that he might have a little bit of time yet to do it. He might not be a 22 or 23-year-old peak. He could be 24, 25. And if that's the case, TT might have got himself a pretty solid first baseman there.
Yep. All right. Well, anything else anybody wants to add about this draft that is now officially in the books?
Yeah. I hate Stang for fucking jumping up in front of me and grabbing the hell was his name in the third round. Rebello. Oh my god, I wanted that dude so bad.
Robelido.
Yes. Oh my god. I literally typed to CAD 73 and 108. I hit enter, and half a second later, you popped Stang up on the screen. I was like, son of a bitch. Because I was waiting for him. I'm literally watching like 5 picks before, just sweating it out like he's gonna get to me. He's gonna get to me. And then I saw CAD pause. I'm like, oh shit, someone's trading up to take him, and Stang took him. And I'm like, oh, you son of a bitch. He has all 3 vitals are above his overall, even though I know that's not going to stay that way. 3 pitches. He just at 81, I think 81 peak. He just looked really good at that point in the draft.
Yeah, he's the exact opposite. I think he dodged a bullet, but well, I mean, this goes
He's
back
not going to be a starter, obviously.
I always look back at, like, I the minor league stats or HS stats are absolutely atrocious for ERA. Now, is every statistic exactly correct? No. But let's be honest. There was a KC pitcher, like when Mike was in Kansas City, that he drafted, had amazing vitals, had 7.0 ERAs all throughout, and was absolutely garbage. And then he did it again, and then the guy was absolutely good. I'm going to lean towards that. Even if he does get decent vitals, everything's always just going to be a little bit higher. So, if he has the vitals that should be like a 3.0 ERA, it's probably going to perform somewhere around like a 4.5.
Yeah.
I could be entirely wrong. I know Andy has his own opinion on that.
Which thing did you say that I have an opinion on?
Robledo with his HS stats.
I don't look at ERA so much for minor leagues. I just look at trends in their production. Let me pull him up quick. I don't like his ground ball percentage. His home runs are all right. High ERA. That could be because he's young. I don't like the high endurance. That's usually a bad sign. I looked at him, but yeah, I tend to agree with Hokey that I would be wary of him.
Maybe I don't get bored on that one.
Well, it's the 3rd round. It's not much of a dodge. It's just a step aside.
Right, sure. Yeah.
All right. Well, that is it. That is our draft recap for this draft. If we didn't talk about your pick, then he wasn't good enough. All right. Good night.